Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
So there has been an ongoing discussion within our county with, unfortunately, dispatch has become the centerpiece of this discussion. Over the course of the last few months, there have been public meetings carrying on this discussion. And unfortunately, in the February 4th meeting, it took a turn into some, personal attacks and disparaging words that were shared in the public forum, obviously devaluing not just what my team does, but what 911 professionals everywhere do, our entire profession. And so when the comments were made that were in the statement you just read, someone got up and in the public hearing stated, it's not rocket science. I love my dispatchers, but it's not hard. And that was a real hit, right, to my team who's sitting there listening to it. And then, of course, everybody's hearing about it. They're watching this hearing from the comm center. And then we had to return right after the meeting.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
What's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you so very much for everything, and all of you, especially who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. Thank you for everything. You're probably looking at this right now and seeing my background and wondering, what is that all about? What? We're going to get to that here in just a moment. There's always different things going on, and this episode is this is kind of a surprise episode. This is going out to everyone here, and I'm very excited for this episode. There's some other things that I could say, but I think looking at the background here says enough. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. And my guest today is Kasey, and she is the director of Stanislaus Regional 911 out of California. Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Well, afternoon for me, but morning for you. Right. Yes, I know. I was looking at the time. I was like, wait. Not for me, but
morning for me.
Yes.
That's
good.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Right. Good morning to you. It is good to have you on. I'm excited to have you here and learn more about you, but also talk about some things that have happened recently that will kind of explain this background and also your shirt that I love very much so. And I am going to be purchasing one of my own as well. We'll talk about those shirts here in a little bit too, but I want to go ahead and just jump right in because there's a lot for us to cover today.
Sure.
But what I want to start with is your story. So you've got about 17 years in public safety, correct?
Yes, that's correct. 17 years. I kind of got into public safety by accident. I used to work for a relay center for the deaf, hard of hearing, and speech disabled. Unfortunately, they were closing down, and I attended a what do you call that? The job fair locally.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you call those things? Job fairs. And I ran into AMR and they said, hey, we dispatch ambulances. And in my mind, having no experience in the space, in my young mind, I thought, oh, okay, so I just put an ambulance on a call and they go. And much to my surprise, at the end of the first week of the academy, it was a Friday, and they said, next week, we are going to learn how to take 911 calls. And I think I went ghost white. And I raised my little hand and said, do you mean we're actually going to be talking to people on the phone? They said, yes, exactly. So I had to go home and contemplate my life over the weekend. But I came back, I faced my fear, and I started at AMR. And I worked as a call taker for my first couple of years before moving up as a dispatcher. From there, I moved down to San Diego. Shout out to Northcom and Rural Metro. Worked for those two dispatch centers. And then came back home up here to Stanislaus and commuted out to the Bay Area for Alameda County Regional. So also shout out to Alameda. Was there for 9 years before joining Stanislaus. And a little bit about the story of Stanislaus. So this center was going through a crisis. And I live here, and our community 911 is small, tight knit, right? So you hear things. Unfortunately, the things that were being said was like Stanislaus is a sinking ship. The wheels are coming off. That people are leaving. They're hemorrhaging employees. And at the time, they were missing or absent a director, a deputy director, 3 of their 4 managers, and they had a 47% vacancy rate. So you can imagine what maybe the vibe was inside the center, right? The culture. We're hearing things like it's a snake pit. Don't walk through dispatch or you'll get bit, because these guys are going through crisis, right?
Right. Yeah.
Overworked, and so I thought, well, that sounds like an exciting journey. Let's see if I can join them. So there wasn't a job at the time, but I made a phone call into the center. I asked who's in charge, and they had placed a lieutenant and 2 fire chiefs into the center to try to help save the ship. And I just reached out and said, hi, I'm Kasey. Here's what I do. Would you guys like some help? I think I can help. And that's how I came to be in SR 911. And
Holy moly.
The journey. Yeah, we've made, great strides. Today, we have only a 7% vacancy rate. We have 3 vacancies of 45. And we have programs. We have a wellness program. We have, QA. We have peer support. And my people are happy and smiling. They're actually enjoying coming to work, where in the beginning, we had people at the back door who were crying before they had to come on shift because of the nature of, right, the toxicity out in the center, things like that. So, yeah, we're doing really, really well today. And that's the most important thing for me is, I'm pointing out here because I have windows to the dispatch, looking at them. They like to watch me talk with my hands because I can see them smiling, laughing, and actually having a good time doing this job.
See, I love hearing things like that because you're right. There are some places where people are dreading coming in because of, it's short staffing issues or just people that are there that, are kind of, some of it is a toxic environment at times, right? But I want to back up a little bit. before you get to that part, because you mentioned starting out at AMR,
Yeah.
and which means you're just taking medicals pretty much all day. And I applaud you and anyone else who is doing only medicals because
And fire.
and fire. Okay, so medicals and fire. Yeah, for sure. So that's all you're doing. And I loved being on phones when I was in dispatch, but dude, like doing
Hey,
thinking about doing medicals all the time, I don't know.
yeah, and instructions, I think there's a misconception like, well, you can't really give instructions over the phone. Absolutely, you can. You can,
Yeah.
we have a 0-second response time to give life-saving instructions. I was just talking to someone the other day trying to provide some education, or they said, well, so you could just like put pressure. No, actually, choking, childbirth, all these things that they're like, oh, holy moly. Yeah.
Right.
And, there are times I think sometimes we think the call taker, right? That's the beginning. That's the initial step you take, and then you become a dispatcher.
Hmm.
I think the call taker's job is one of the hardest jobs because they're just call after call after call, right? And
Right.
talking with the public and listening to these things. So don't forget your call takers. They
Yes,
are
no.
valued.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I feel like, and that's why I want to talk about this a little bit, because I feel like all of this in the beginning kind of helped and molded you going into what you ended up helping to fix. So, you're taking all these medicals and such, and fire. You
Mhm.
started out, and and like you were saying, you were thinking, I'm just going to be doing this or that, and then they
Yeah.
tell you about phones. So that people can kind of get a picture, those who are watching and listening right now, what
Mhm.
was that like for you in the beginning? Because did you get to do a sit along, or are you just walking in after the
No.
hiring process? Okay, so you
Yeah.
you walk in. If you remember walking in, what are you seeing? Is it a bunch of monitors? Is there a bunch of
Oh, yeah.
people? And also, were you slightly overwhelmed at what you were seeing and what you were going to be doing?
Oh, yeah, I was overwhelmed. When I walked in, and it looked like a space station. All the monitors, the noises, right? Ding, ding,
Yeah.
going off, the lights, and the flashing of lights on the CAD terminals. Yeah, it was overwhelming. And that's why the end of week one, especially when they said, you're going to be talking to people on the phone, I went, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And sitting down at the console for the first time, it is extremely overwhelming, right? But you figure it out. You just keep coming back every day and learning more, and eventually you hit that moment where it clicks, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, it was that I thought, holy smokes, like this is a big job.
Now, are you working 8 hours or 12 hours there, or
Well,
how does the structure there when you first started out?
yeah, they were working 12s, 06 to 18. They had some staggered shifts. I worked a 10 to 10, I think it was one of my first shifts, which has worked out. You could sleep in a little bit and get to go home in time to get to bed and have enough sleep. But
Mhm.
yeah, everybody was on 12s, and they worked a rotating every other weekend. You would have a 3-day weekend. So they would rotate their days every week, kind of like that. But yeah,
How big of an area were you guys covering?
we're 2 counties. Yeah. So Stanislaus County for EMS, and then San Joaquin County, which is our neighbor, for fire and EMS. They had, it's been a long time, so don't quote me, but I think 15 fire agencies
Mhm.
that they dispatch for, along with all EMS for each county.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're coming in with no experience, right? And you've got all of this that's going on. And I bring this up as well because, like I said, it just kind of sets that foundation for what you are going through during that time that ends up, and a lot of us go through it, right? You've got this foundation, these early experiences that later on, when folks move up or whichever, even
Yeah.
on the front line, you're able to talk to people about this and say, look, I know what you're going through, or you're learning from them, as you're going through this. So do you remember some of those earlier calls that you took when you first started out?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely they stick with me. Of course, what comes to mind first is all the the traumatic calls, right? The bad calls that you take, and especially when you're first off training. So I remember being signed off on training. My trainer said, "Okay, I'm going to sign you off, and I'm going home early." So I don't know if I got signed off because they could go home early.
Right.
But I remember he unplugged, and I looked back at him. The phone rang, and I picked up a CPR. And then he could tell by asking the questions, "Oh, she's got a CPR, like first call." And I looked back at him, like, and paused, like, "What am I going to do?" And he looks at me, he goes, "Do you got it?" And I just went, "Yeah, I got it." And I turned back around and I took the call. And that was my very first call. And it also gave me the confidence to say, "Okay, I can do this. I just took a CPR call, literally being unplugged 2 seconds ago." So that was a call that stuck with me. And definitely, the bad calls, which I don't want to go into today. I'm going to try to keep it positive.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody knows, right? And holds on to those bad calls. But
yeah, those it seems like it seems like it happens all the time. The moment that you are let go on your own, yours literally, the moment after you're signed off and you're on your own, something happens. It's like a, welcome to dispatch. And for some folks, like for me, it was a pretty heavy one that happened. And I describe it now as if dispatch was a gang, I was getting beat in.
That was unfortunately, I think, what do we call the old school, training style to kind of beat you in,
right?
Jump you in.
Yeah.
And then there's those calls that sneak up on you. So I think it took about 2 years for me to actually start feeling like comfortable, right, in dispatch, comfortable in the profession. And another call that sticks with me, right? You're comfortable enough. I'm sitting there. It's the morning shift is coming in. We got to get coffee. Who wants Starbucks? We're doing this. I'm on a call and I mute and I'm giving my order. I want a latte, whatever. And all of a sudden, I had just asked what happened. This guy goes, "Well, he fell off a fence." And as I'm giving my order, I hear, "I can't find his head." And it sucked me back into the call. And "What do you mean you cannot find his head?"
Right.
What have I got going on here?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I was looking. I think I found an arm. I think I might have found a leg, but I can't find his head." And I'm still going, "What do you mean? Like he fell off a fence? How did he came apart? I don't know." Turns out the patient had fallen into a pile of leaves, and the guy was searching through the leaves and was uncovering him and telling me like, "Oh, I found his leg. Oh, I found his arm. Okay, now I found his head. Okay, so he's fully together. That's great. We're gonna give instructions."
Oh my Lord!
This is how the report comes in. Sometimes you have to kind of be a detective and sift through and uncover these things.
Oh, yes. And I can just imagine. So for those who are watching and listening, 911 professionals have the ability to multitask like you wouldn't believe. That you almost like picture an octopus, with all, doing all of these different things, and you're able to hear everything that is going on. You build that dispatch ear and you can do so many things. Because I remember as well, I would take calls and out of this ear as this one is going, I would hit mute so they don't hear me talking, but I would do the same thing. Like, I'll do half on the pizza if you guys go half, and and then go through the call. But yeah, you're right. When it's something like that, also you hear one of those things, and I don't know if you did this, but I can imagine that someone would end up saying, "What do you mean you can't find their head?" Like out loud, so that everyone else, because that's the way it happens, right? Yeah. Sometimes when a call comes in and it's you repeat it so that everyone out there knows, It's not just for you to confirm it from the caller, it's also at the same time so that everyone hears what's going on, so that they know you've got something going on. Or the other thing is, when you hear someone typing hard and fast, you know something is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's an alert to everybody.
Right.
You hear that? Okay, focus on our partner, right? Let's see if we can help her out. Totally agree with you.
I can't imagine though, like, taking the call, right, and typing it in and stuff, and then hearing someone say that, and you're like, okay, what for real? Like,
I thought this is a fall off a fence.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
happened?
what happened there? Right. Yes. No, this stuff happens in 911 where you don't know what is going on, but luckily the person was in leave. So that's good.
Not a bad outcome on that one.
Right. Yes. Now, I do have a question. If you remember, during that time when you first started out, do you remember kind of what the culture was like during that time? And the reason I say this as well is because it seems like maybe 2016 on has been more when culture really started to come into play. Like, it started out and then it started to build and build and build and build. And now people are talking about culture all the time. But the same, like with my dispatch center, there wasn't a lot of talk about like culture and how you're doing things and making people rather feel welcome or recognized or something like that. So do you remember kind of how the culture was during that time?
Oh yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. It was 2008. And this center had just expanded because they took on fire and other agencies. And so some of the staff that had been there during that transition, they were just handed a headset and it was like, go figure it out, right? That was their training. And so you're right, there wasn't much talk about culture. And so it was still this mentality that, hey, you're the new guy, you sit down, you don't speak, and even you don't have a name until you're off training. Yeah, you come into the academy and just know we can release you up until, the last day of your probation. So it's like you're working in the fear. And then also like trying to keep your head down. Well, that's not really productive when you're supposed to be in a learning environment, right? I'm afraid to approach people. Now, add on top of that, I have a major fear of public speaking, which I have learned to kind of work through this fear, right, in my career. So when I came in, the culture there was to stand up and say, hey, cancel that call, and you yell across it. And I was like, I'm not getting up. I'm not doing it. My trainer was like, you need to stand up. So I was the trainee. I called them on the phone. I was like, can you cancel such and such unit? And their dispatchers were looking at me like, are you crazy? and my trainer let me do that until I learned, yeah, that's not cool. Dispatchers don't want a phone call from across the room. Right. So I had to stand up and finally I yelled, cancel it. I think I yelled too loud, cancel medic, whatever it was. And I worked through that. But yeah, it was tough. There was a lot of eat your young, mentality, put them through the ringer as the probie and see if they can make it. But there was also like this attachment or hesitancy to become attached to the new person in case they were released from probation. So even some of your senior employees, I think that's where like hey, you don't have a name, or I'm not going to interact with you until you prove yourself, because the last person I did that with, they were let go and now I've lost my friend, so like kind of that trauma for them going on. But yeah, and I came through that kind of stuff in a couple centers, and I think it really helped shape my mindset and what I do today. Like that culture is over. We don't have any room for that in SR 911. I tell my people all the time, we will hire someone with a great attitude over someone that can dispatch with their eyes closed but has a bad attitude any day of the week, because we're not building that kind of culture here. We're building a better culture with a better team, right? A supportive team with the right attitude. And I was lucky enough to have a couple people in those dispatch centers that were kind of toxic or had that culture back in the day, that were trying to make that change, that were mentors,
Yeah.
to help me, guide me. But it became almost like a driving force for me to want to get in positions to make that kind of change for dispatchers, because I went through it myself, right? And I don't want anybody to have to go through that anywhere. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
So anyway, but
I
yeah,
I love that. I love that. It's kind of leaving the profession in a sense, or the thought process rather. That mindset of wanting to leave 911 in a better place than what you found it.
mhm,
And I think a lot of us that do speaking or are directors, deputy directors, supervisors, CTOs, whatever. That is kind of that goal, because you've got new folks coming in and you want to kind of help mold that literal next generation of 911 that
yeah,
is coming in. Now, I do have a question though, because there are some centers that are still like this. Like I go around and I teach a course about communications, bridging the gap, all of these different things. And one of the pieces that I have in there is about the eating our young, and I asked that question. So I kind of want your opinion as well. What your thought on this is why do you think that happens? Do you think it's because there are some folks that are left over from that previous guard, where it's like hurt people? It's like, I
yeah,
went through this, so now you're going to go through this. But there are some, like yourself, like myself, like a lot of other people who are like, we went through some of the crap like this. We don't want you to go through that, and we're helping
yeah.
change that culture. So do you think it's just that it's hurt people, and it's that previous guard, or what do you
I
think?
Yeah, I do think it is some of the previous guard, right? And passing that down generationally as if new people come in, right? This is how we do things. And
Yeah,
it keeps being passed down until you have somebody or a group or that's going to say, hey, no more. We're going to change this. We're not doing that. And let those people filter themselves out, right? I think that's where also, from a leadership standpoint, accountability comes into play. You have to have the hard conversations. You have to stand strong. Your people want you to hold the others accountable, because that type of attitude, that mentality, it becomes a cancer, right? You
right.
have one with that, it starts to spread. So don't let it spread. Have the hard conversations. You have to hold people accountable to change that, because that attitude affects everybody in the room, right?
Right.
You have one
Yeah.
person who's spewing this toxicity or whatever. Everybody who hears that is affected by it. And I think, yeah, I think you're totally right. It's been handed down. And then you've got, the centers that maybe the small centers that feel alone or unrepresented, that are overworked, don't know who to reach out to. They probably get frustrated and tired. My people here were the same way, being worked to death almost, no breaks, no, not 18-hour shifts.
Yeah.
It gets tough. And then so that it becomes, when you're in that kind of a situation, it becomes really hard to say, we're going to make a culture change on top of while we're going through this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're exactly correct. And I love how you mentioned about the how there are some folks, just the attitude alone of some people that are, like you said, eventually kind of become kind of a cancer or a toxic, piece of the center that just continues to bring it down. And I've mentioned to people, I'm like, cliques are the same way.
Uh,
Like you've got little cliques, in centers and stuff, and it sucks. And I've been saying this lately, and it's just that for those that are out there, if you are part of these cliques, I just want you to remember something, because I've talked to a lot of people, and this happens at just about every center. Eventually, those cliques are going to be broken up,
yep.
whether it be different shifts or people end up leaving to different centers. And if you're the last person from that click, man, people forgive, but they don't forget. And you're going to be the person who's trying to work very hard to gain the trust back and support from those that you were crapping on when you were part of that clique.
It's true. We don't forget.
Right. It happens. And this is also why I wanted to go into a little bit more of your story going on to right before you came to the Regional 911 Center, because
Yeah.
you went through all of this. And that, that helps as well kind of tell the story a little more, in the sense of you seeing, or hearing rather, that there were some issues going on and you reached out
Yeah.
because you wanted to help.
Yeah.
So you go through all of this stuff. You've got your experience, right? Taking calls, being on the radio, doing all these things, going through the toxicity of what it was or whichever. And so you've got this, and it feels like you kind of have also kind of this mission that you want to just continue helping.
Yeah.
And you come to this center. Now, you come in and you kind of gave an overview already, but was it like right off the bat when you come in and they're like, here you go, now it's your turn, let's see what you can do with it, and now you're trying to figure out how to work all of this?
The chiefs and the lieutenant that were in here trying to help kind of just said, here you go, sit at the desk and fix it, right? Help us fix it. Because and I appreciate them so much. They were so supportive of me and everything. It really helped me get through the first couple of years here. But they themselves were like, we don't know what we're doing, right? We're not 911, we're chiefs, and we do this together. But coming in, I walked in and you could feel, right, the tension in the room. You could feel that, oh my God, we're being worked, so much. We're going through this. We don't feel valued. I heard stories. So the first thing I did was start meeting with everybody, like one-on-one, just to introduce myself, not in a professional way, just to talk about, hey, I have, 3 kids. What do you do for fun? And story after story repeated that they had seen kind of this revolving door and leadership here, that no one really stayed for a long period of time. One dispatcher who has been here 20-something years said, I've never been in the director's office. I've never talked one-on-one with the director. And it was shocking to me, because walking in, I'm going, all right, we're going to need culture change. They're going to need supported. I feel for them. I've been through that. It's tough. I want to come in and help. And I got mean girl too in the beginning. Mm-hmm. With during Christmas, where I got some stocking stuffers returned. But and you felt that, but it's just being persistent. And every day I come in, one of the small things I do is I make sure that when I come in, I'm walking in through the door that goes through the dispatch floor. So even if my day gets out of hand, I'm on back-to-back meetings, right? I know I'm not going to get out there to spend some quality time with them. I have that moment where I walk in the door and it's good morning to everybody as I'm walking through. And if somebody wants to talk to me or ask me a question, I stop and I'll have that conversation first thing in the morning and talk with them, but just be there with them, or in the trenches with them, if you will, right? And so they see me, they hear me, and they know that, I'm with them and I have their back no matter what. I think that's missing in some places where you have people that are, or like they mentioned, this revolving door, the person that's coming in just to punch the clock. If you're coming in just to punch the clock, you might be part of the problem, right? We need to get out there in front of our people and let them know that they're valued and that you got their back. And I think that building that relationship is really what's helped turn things around, and also giving them listening, right? Listening to what they need and then taking action on it. We did a lot of that. And a lot of that in the beginning was small stuff. Can we get water? Yeah, we can get a water service. Can we get coffee? Yeah, we can get coffee. Those were huge things in the beginning. And I'm going, just coffee and water? Like but what do you guys really need?
Right.
Peer support. Let's get, we need to get our staffing up. We need to get formal training, QA, all these things, right? How can I really help you? But that was telling me at that time, like, wow, if they're just like, this is a huge thing for them, these guys really need some attention,
Yeah.
And it was like they had been in this silo of just SR 911, and not been aware of the larger community out there in the 911 community that could support them. And so all of this stuff in the last couple of weeks that have transpired has been really, really amazing for them. But yeah, it's been a tough road, but like I said, we're in a good, really, really good place right now.
How long ago was it that you started there and started working on all of this that you just mentioned right now?
Yeah, so I was hired in September of 22
Mhm.
as a deputy director. They had an interim chief was the interim executive director. 6 months in, they put me in as interim director, and then just this past April or June, I interviewed and was put in a permanent executive director. So it's what's that? Couple years.
Yeah.
So we've made all this change in just a couple years. We've got we had a really good leadership team. We have the managers. Our 3 managers are amazing. We just hired a new deputy director who has a ton of experience, the right attitude, and the common theme among everybody that's in our leadership team is we're here for our people, right? It's not about ego. It's not about title. We have conversations. We have monthly meetings where I tell them, hey, there's no titles here. It's just all of us talking. We're all brainstorming. How can we help the center? And to be honest with you, I give it back to them. They have created, their wellness program. It has nonprofit status right now. They have created their peer support team. They have taken off with their training program. I'm introducing QA, which people are kind of like hesitant, and we haven't really had, oh my gosh, they're going to listen to my calls.
Yeah.
But really, they have done it all. I just let them run with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot to happen in just 2.5 years, 2.5, 3 years there. Coming in, seeing what's going on, going through those growing pains, but those hard moments of, and I'm sure there was probably folks, and I don't know this, I'm just speculating. This is just my opinion. I feel like with all of the BS probably that they were dealing with, and then you coming in and being like, let's change this, let's do this. Some of them might have been hesitant, like, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, right. Like, sure, you're going to come in here and we're going to do this. Oh, rah, rah, whatever. You don't know the people who have come in here before. And so there's that slow build of people finally being like, you know what? She's legit. Like, she really wants to.
Yeah.
And I think what helps as well is that you come from where they come from. Because I think it probably would have been a bit harder for, if it was someone from law enforcement or someone from not even in public safety to come in to try to run things. So you've gone through this whole time. And just to hear that people had never been in the office or spoken to some others or whatever, or you kind of giving them the rein to, hey, let's make this, make it your own, in a sense, right? But the center and really build it. Like, let's really make some change. And I can only imagine that having that, those options now, and probably learning about what's on the outside in the sense of, different organizations, people that help support them or whichever, was a huge eye opener, and also kind of put in that pride again, like holding their head up high, like, what we do is important.
Yep. We have a complete revamp of, they even came up with their own, a new mission statement, vision, and values. I don't have the shirt on today, but it's elevate.
Nice.
Elevate
Like that.
FM 911. When I walked in, And no offense to anybody that likes this statement, but the vital link, statement was up on the wall. And I said, how does this make you guys feel? They're like, oh, not really good. I said, do you feel like a telephone line? Like you're just like a link? And they're like, yeah, we don't like that. And so again, they came up with all of that. I always say it's their ship to sail, sink or sail. It's up to you guys. You own it. This is your dispatch center. It's not mine, right? I didn't come up with the values. It's not me standing up here saying these shall be your values.
Right.
These are made by you for you. And so I think that's a big part of it.
I love that they have really embraced all of that, and there's been so much change, and change is good. Like nobody likes change, right?
Yeah.
Especially when things have been a certain way or whichever, but change can be good. Now, with change, with progress, there are always going to be trolls. There's always going to be people that are out there who are like, what you do is this or that, or, whichever. And that kind of brings you down a little bit. And that always sucks. And so I want to kind of transition into something that has happened recently, which kind of explains my background a little bit, as well as your awesome shirt there. And so there was a public hearing. There was something that happened on the 4th of this month, on February 4th, 2025. And there was also some words that were said in a 911 industry podcast. And that happened like a day or two after this public hearing, which is weird how this kind of stacked up. But then on February 18th, just a few days ago, today's the 21st, just a few days ago, there was a statement that was put out by the NENA chapter of California, or CalNENA as they're known. And I want to read this really quick and then kind of get your side of this, like what exactly happened. Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is, for those who are watching and listening, this is all over social media. So this was a public statement. This isn't something that I'm like, surprise. It's all over the place already. So I just wanted to read this so that for anyone who's watching and listening who may not know exactly what is going on or what we're talking about, they'll have some information here. So it says, CalNENA is the voice of over 8,000 public safety dispatchers at both the state and local level, including those with law enforcement, fire, EMS, and other public safety operations. We answer over 27 million 911 calls annually, and we are dedicated to making 911 and public safety communications work better. We measure our success in the lives that are saved by the 911 system every day. Recently, disparaging comments have been made in public hearings and industry podcasts that undermine our profession and the hardworking dispatchers of our state. At a public hearing, a sworn officer and former 911 professional remarked that our profession is not rocket science, adding, "I love my dispatchers, but it's not that hard." Similarly, on an industry podcast, noting that the opinion would be unpopular, a former dispatcher and industry employee stated that because dispatchers are not in the field responding to calls, they do not deserve safety retirement. The CalNENA board unanimously agreed that these comments are unacceptable and warrant a response. Public safety dispatchers are highly trained professionals. Our work requires months, sometimes a year or more of initial training, followed by mandatory continued education throughout our careers. Any working dispatcher can attest that it takes 2 or more years of training and work experience to truly be comfortable in this profession. Dispatchers must constantly adapt to new technologies and evolving emergency response procedures, making the job increasingly complex. We are the voice of calm in chaos, or chaotic rather, situations, reassuring and assisting callers, providing life-saving instructions, gathering information, and keeping field responders safe through constant monitoring and communication. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our worth and skills became even more evident. Dispatchers did not have the option to work from home or shelter in place. We continued to report to work in close quarters to ensure that public safety was maintained. In many cases, COVID-19 traveled through our centers, infecting dispatchers who continued to come to work because they knew the job had to be done. At the vast majority of 911 centers around the state, we operate at or below minimum staffing due to the difficult and taxing nature of the job. Shifts of 10, 12, or 16 hours are common. The job is restrictive and sedentary in nature, and dispatchers must deal with adrenaline-filled and taxing shifts. We routinely sacrifice time with our families, missing birthdays, holidays, and life's important moments because we are passionate about our profession and our communities. It is especially troubling that field responders and former 911 professionals have made these statements when they have sat in our seats, worn the headset, and understand how difficult this profession truly is. The mental and physical toll it takes on our professional and personal lives is real. Devaluing the dispatchers that work hard every day of the year, keeping you safe, is not constructive, nor is it welcomed. Rather than devaluing the professionals who keep our communities safe, we should stand together as one public safety team. The Catalina Board has over 196 years of cumulative work experience in this profession. We have seen the evolution of the profession from paper cards and rotary phones to computers and cell phones to texting 911 with language translation and artificial intelligence. It is ever evolving, yet 911 will always require someone to take the call. That is why we are here, and we are not going anywhere. We will continue to serve the public as we always have, making it appear easy, professional, and carefree when it is anything but that. We urge the public to support the reclassification of public safety dispatchers as safety employees and grant us the pay and benefits that are commensurate. I read half of the word and then got it with the level of the responsibility and stress that we are tasked with. Every day, we plug our headsets in and answer calls. 911, what is the address of your emergency? We continue to encourage each agency to update their job descriptions to include the current duties of the telecommunicators in your department. Having up-to-date job descriptions will play a pivotal role in our fight to be reclassified nationwide. As we plan this year's 911 Goes to Sacramento event, where we educate legislators on what the job behind the headset truly looks like, we ask for our colleagues and vendor partners' continued support in our efforts and appreciate those who have stood by us in this fight. Finally, we are sending a shout out to our rocket scientist colleagues at Stanislaus Regional 911 and any agency who's affected by the downplay of our profession. Keep your heads held high and know that we are with you every step of the way. Sincerely, your Catalina Board, rocket scientists and supporters for a combined 196 years. Whoa!
Oh, yeah. That's it. Mic drop.
Yes, yes, tons of mic drops. Yes, right there. When I read that, and in my mind, I read that word right the first time.
You did well. You almost made it through.
I read that and I thought, what the hell happened? Like, what is going on? So, here we are. So what exactly happened? If you can just kind of give us an overview, because you're reading the statement and everything, which stand behind fully, like, man, don't downplay what 911 professionals do because you have no idea. So, what happened?
What happened? So there has been an ongoing discussion within our county with, unfortunately, dispatch has become the centerpiece of this discussion. Over the course of the last few months, there have been public meetings carrying on this discussion. And unfortunately, in the February 4th meeting, it took a turn into some, personal attacks and disparaging words that were shared in the public forum, obviously devaluing not just what my team does, but what 911 professionals everywhere do, our entire profession. And so when the comments were made that were in the statement you just read, someone got up and in the public hearing stated, it's not rocket science. I love my dispatchers, but it's not hard. And that was a real hit, right, to my team who's sitting there listening to it. And then, of course, everybody's hearing about it. They're watching this hearing from the comm center. And then we had to return right after the meeting. And there were other comments made that were kind of hurtful. And it was just an unfortunate situation that it had to take that turn. But when we got back, I have to tell you, my team was already at work. Like, we are rocket scientists. We are, because the work, and I'm speaking to the 911 community, and we all know this, the work is hard.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is kind of rocket science. It takes a special skill, a special attitude, personality to be able to do this job and with longevity. And for anyone to try to downplay that, especially in the public, that's just wrong. So instead of, taking that and turning it negative, we decided to take that, spin it into a positive, and use it as a platform to bring the 911 community together to advocate, right, for reclassification, and also as a platform to bridge the gap and provide some education on what it does actually take to be a 911 professional. And so that same day, my team was at work. All of a sudden, we have T-shirts. We are rocket scientists. There's an equation on my window that someone drew, a rocket science equation they found on the internet. Yesterday we had other county departments just reaching out within our county saying, hey, we saw what happened. Are you guys okay? Keep going. You do a great job. One department brought over, I don't have it on my desk, rocket science trophy. It's a rocket ship in a trophy, and it says rocket scientist of the year or whatever. So we plan to use that like as a monthly employee of the month thing. And then we went to, it got on social media because I shouldn't say unfortunately, but there were colleagues of mine watching this public hearing live because they were interested in the discussion. And so we had people from not only California, but also in other states across the nation that heard this live, and then it kind of just took off like a rocket. It launched.
Yes.
And so it's kind of become this movement now, rocket scientists, and we have people that are buying the shirts. Other agencies as you've probably seen on social media, making videos, reaching out, giving a shout out to my team, because that was a blow. We've done all these great things that we've been talking about in this podcast. We're on such a great trajectory. We're talking about even, bringing in EMS consolidation, about improving the 911 system in the county. They're doing an awesome job every day. And then to have someone get up there and make disparaging comments was just really, really unfortunate. But all the love that has been coming out from our community and to my team, they are resilient and they are pumped right now. They are rocket scientists. So everybody's got their shirts. It's just, it's amazing. And of course, the support from CalNina, very much appreciated. I think it's an opportunity to spread some positivity and, like I said, advocate and provide some education. So.
Yeah, I fully agree, because people could have easily responded in anger, and it didn't go that way. And even with the statement, like I posted something yesterday, I think it was yesterday morning, and it just kind of was mirroring what CalNina had said. But what I was saying was that that's why it's important for us to share our stories and talk about what it is that we do,
Yeah.
and also think about how we talk about that, because that's the impression that is in perception that's going to be left on whoever it is that you're talking to about what it is that you do. And,
Yeah.
and I mentioned in there, don't respond in anger, respond the way Kalnina did in their statement, because it was all facts and knowledge.
Yeah.
That is the best way to do it, and helping people understand through that, and also through storytelling, the power of storytelling, like all of it. That's why it was so important to have you come on and have conversations like this too, because you went down the timeline of your story, things that you dealt with, things in that culture that was kind of fueled you as well to want to make things different. And then you come to this center, and within 2 years or so, you guys really changed. You went through things, you changed stuff,
Yeah.
and then you get kind of hit with this, which also kind of sucks too, because it's a public hearing. So if people
Yeah.
can watch it anywhere, then that impression of the words that people said is now in the public too. Like, oh, well, maybe this isn't, a hard thing, or whatever, if they're saying that. So that kind of sucks as well. But the fact that you guys turned it around and embraced the rocket scientists and all of it, but also to show people what it is that you guys do and give some understanding about it, like that is exactly the way to do it. And I can't wait to see how much more um people embrace everything that you all are doing. I mean, you already see the support coming from, social media, people
Yeah.
from other states, other centers. And really quick, for those who might want to purchase one of those shirts, because I'm going to buy two already in the color that you're wearing, and there's one in black as well. I think it's on like Sticker Mule or
Yeah.
something like that.
There's not just SR91, but there's just a 911
Mhm.
option as well. But yeah, it's on Sticker Mule.
Awesome. So make sure to check that out there, because the proceeds from those shirts go where?
Straight to the wellness program. It's their online store, their nonprofit status. And so they earn the funds go straight to SR911 wellness.
Excellent. See, and that's awesome as well. It goes to a great cause, goes to, for everything there at your center. And with all of this that is going on, the support for your center, and some of these disparaging words that have been said from people over there, and the industry podcasts or whichever, where do you see this going? Like, do you think it will? Because in my opinion, I feel like it was a no pun intended, a launch pad for for even more people to see and understand, like you said, what it really takes, what people really do in 911.
Yeah, well, I think you're exactly right. It's a launch pad. It's a rallying point to say, to shine the spotlight on our profession. There's things that we're advocating for, right? Mental health and wellness. We experience PTSI. We need programs that support our dispatchers so that they have longevity in the career. We need proper pay and benefits. We need to be reclassified. So where do I see it going? I'm not totally sure, but what it is definitely doing is creating a larger platform to shine the light on these issues, shine the light on the profession for the people that are behind the scenes most of the time, right? The people that are not necessarily seen. It's an opportunity to get them seen and heard. That's where I see it going, right? Spread the mission, spread the love, let people know what it is that we do and why it is important that we are have proper benefits, pay, and are supported with proper programs, right? Just like any other public safety professional.
Right. So I have had so much fun with you on this episode, and we're going into the wrap up of this. And I've got two questions here at the end for you. And the first one is because of what you've been going through lately, but also seeing the rally. And like you said, coming back after that hearing and your folks already like, this is what we're doing. Like, this is, just embracing it. Right. And making it a positive. For anyone out there who has ever felt maybe unseen, unrecognized, even right now, as you know, Nina is next week going to be in Washington. Their 911 goes to Washington, that they're going and continuing to talk to officials about reclassification and such. But specifically, what I'm getting at here, for anyone who may have been brought down a peg or looked down on for the profession or whichever, or someone else saying what you do is not that hard or whichever, what would you say to them?
I would say, you're getting me pumped. No. What I would say to them is take comfort in your team. Reach out to the 911 community that we are here to help you. There are organizations and others out there. Get connected. Don't let those comments bring you down. Those people, I think, have a lack of understanding, right? They don't understand the job that you do. And so they make these comments. It's not reflective of what you are doing every day. Every day you show up, you provide life-saving instructions, you lead people to safety. And I don't know any other profession that can say I have a 0-second response time, and every day I have an opportunity to save someone in 0 seconds flat because I'm there answering the call. Continue to show up. Don't let it get you down. You are seen, you are heard, and you are valued.
Perfect. I love it. And then the final question is for you specifically. And I ask the same question to every single guest at the end of the episode. So you've got 17 years in this profession, and you, as we've talked about, have gone through a lot. But if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your career in public safety, and what would you tell yourself now? And it's not to change anything, right? Because I feel like we go through certain things and it brings us and helps us develop to who we are today, right? Whether it be hard lessons, good lessons, whatever the case may be. But if you could go back in time to talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I think I would go back to that trainee, right, who was having the hard time, and just tell myself, I know that you think you like this career now, because I was starting to like it, like off the bat. I fell in love with it, right? There are going to be hard days. Keep working through the hard days because, oh my God, you don't know what you're going to do in the future. This is going to be an amazing experience. You're going to meet amazing people. You're going to touch lives, and just keep working through the hard days, right? Keep going. I would give myself that encouragement.
Awesome. That is awesome. That is excellent. Thank you so much for being on, for what you do for this profession, and just for you, for being a good human, man, and the way you are with your folks there, because a lot more centers need someone like you.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much for everything. And from within the trenches, the I Am 911 movement, we are behind you. Thank
you for being an advocate. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to spread the word, amplify our story. We're really hoping that this helps shift the mindset, and it also reaches some of our field responders, our chiefs and our sheriffs that are the executives over dispatch, to say, hey, we are a part of public safety. We are a part of the team. And also, everybody, don't forget your admin staff and your tech team that supports you behind the scenes.
Yes.
Also, you don't operate without them. They're going through it too. And just remain resilient.
Awesome. Thank you again for being on. And I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. But the easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 I's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there. You'll find my email, all of my social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episode. And if you want to be a guest on the show, there's a link there as well. So whether you're new, currently in it, you're seasoned or retired, I would love to share your story. I've been doing this for over a decade. This is my passion, and I wouldn't change it. I love helping to share these stories out there to literally the world. This podcast it can be heard in over 60 countries, and I just recently surpassed 2.3 million downloads, but I couldn't do that without all of you. So thank you for that support, and all of you who have come on over the years to share your stories. You can also find information on the Imagine Listening books and so much more. Again, that it's links with 2eyes.co/WTT podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor as well, In Digital, a leader next gen core services, and subscribers of the podcast. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn Live, as well as X. And then there's other clips and everything from all of the shows that you can see as well for Instagram Reels and TikTok. So make sure to check all those out. And then you can listen to this 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one.